the kind of bigger picture of the Julian Assange case has been watching certain parts of the media almost cheer on or be pleased about his prosecution, and some parts of the media being like obviously horrified at the idea that a journalist can be prosecuted for printing the truth. Why do you think it is that we've got that split? Like, surely that should be something upon which the media is totally united. Like, that if you want to print the truth and you have the documents to prove it's the truth, that should be it. Like, why do you think there is that division?
Yeah, no, I actually know why there's that division. It's interesting because there's two types of talking heads. Okay. You've got journalists and reporters and investigative, people that are actually seeking information. And then you have state-sponsored propaganda. And state-sponsored propaganda, which is what most people watch, unfortunately, it's mainstream media. They are so willing to throw Julian Assange under the bus because it suits their corporate donors. I mean, we have 90% of our media is owned by about 5-6 for-profit corporations. All of those people probably hate Julian Assange. So this is something that is a witch hunt. It's been a witch hunt. So what you have is you'll have actual journalists, actual independent media people that are going to be very supportive of Julian Assange because they have no corporate donors that are not allowing them to go forward with this information. We've seen a total blackout of Julian Assange on mainstream media in general. You don't even see it. So they don't only, I mean, they ghost him, but they get too much corporate money. Those are not, we just have to distinguish between talking heads and journalists. And there's a very big distinction.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess like it becomes a case of like the corporate media versus sort of independent journalists. Like, not that there isn't like great journalists working in almost every organization, but like somewhere like CNN doesn't hire out investigative reporters and it's like a commentary like theater basically.
We stopped having, our mainstream media stopped having foreign correspondents after 9/11, but really it was when the first Iraq war with Bush Sr., where they were putting out this moratorium on coffins being shown coming back. And then under W, that was it. There was no, like, after 9/11, they wouldn't allow the media and to be seeing what's going on in the world. So we can keep everybody in this nice little bubble where they only are privy to what the state wants them to know. Mm. And so we don't have investigative reporters out there anymore. People who used to be on TV, Tom Brokaw, Dan Rather, like even that generation, which definitely was corporate, but those were still actual journalists. Someone like Dan Rather, he was an on-ground reporter in Vietnam. Like, we used to have that. Mm. And since 9/11, that is completely gone. Mm. And that's the problem. So the people that are telling us, they're only telling us what the Situation Room at the White House tells them to tell us. Mm. They're just stenographers of the establishment. They're not reporting anything.
Do you think that that's like entirely because they don't want you to see the things outside of the bubble? Or do you think there's like a financial incentive in there as well? It's much easier to just get the information from the White House like press team and not bother to send out an investigative reporter. Like, do you think?
No, they're banned. They're barred from it. No, I not only do I think that they're barred. Yeah, they're not. None of the mainstream outlets have on ground reporting in any of the places that, like Syria, Iraq, any place where we're not going to look good. You'll never have somebody on the ground reporting from there anymore. It's just not how it works. All they'll do is they'll have some expert come on or some spokesperson from the Pentagon or whoever it is, but there is no field reporting anymore. And the kind of outlets that do field reporting, what's interesting is you get a completely different picture. Completely different. Max Blumenthal interviewed Maduro, and that is actual journalism. That's go and spend time in Venezuela, and that's reporting. That's investigative journalism. We don't get that in the mainstream whatsoever. We just get a talking point, a video clip that's been pre-approved, and then maybe some expert that was brought in by the corporate donor of that channel. That's basically all we get. And I think that Ultimately, there's a huge financial incentive. Obviously, the elite people want to keep us as ignorant and fighting amongst ourselves as we possibly can. And create all sorts of stupid issues like whether or not transgender people can use bathrooms, and getting people riled up about nonsense to keep the working people from uniting together against the oligarchs. And so I generally look at what used to be the fourth estate as now it's just another arm of the oligarchy. And the actual fourth estate, which are the people out on the fringe, like the gray zone journalists and, like Abby Martin and Eva Bartlett. And you've got there are good journalists in the world, but they're kept from having the size platform that they would need to reach most people in this country. I can't, we are extremely bubbled and ignorant here, and I'm aware of that. So I can only speak in this country, and your average person in this country will watch CNN or MSNBC, and that's it. That's all they watch. And that's their base of information. And it is extremely Western, white, supremacist, imperialist based propaganda. Okay. But when you've been growing up in that, you don't notice it. It's gradual. And so really, I think they do it to keep everybody ignorant.
Why do you say it's white supremacist based propaganda before we go to something else? Like, whoa, yeah. Why do you say that?
Well, when I say that, I'm talking about just like this Western, Northern hemisphere thing where white is superior to dark, where the people in the dark brown countries are the ones that are terrorists and criminals. The people that have brown skin that are coming across the border that we have to be scared of. And so I think that our mainstream media continuously propagates. And at this point, it's so just run of the mill. Like, it's not even, these are not people coming out like, as Klan members wearing hoods and stuff, but it's just the subtlety of how they cover different people. And those people often happen to be of darker skin. And those people are often othered by our mainstream media. They're seen as wrongdoers, as terrorists, as savages. They can't get their own lives together. They'd all fight amongst themselves. They need us to save them. That entire mentality is, in my opinion, a very anti-dark skin. I'm not going to say anti-black because there's, a variety of shades, but it is. And that's our mainstream narrative.
I mean, I'm curious to like, do you think it's white supremacism, or do you think it's like almost like an American supremacism thing? Because I mean, it kind of clashes with what you were saying before about, because something that I really believe that you were saying earlier was about the sort of desire to have us fighting amongst ourselves. And whilst I definitely agree that like there's some news outlets and a lot of like vilification of, say, immigration or of people like refugees, especially like in the UK, for example, we had a lot of vilification of people fleeing across the Mediterranean from Syria when they're, when that doesn't seem like an easy option if you're going to consider like trying to come across the Med on a dinghy. But do you think it's solely like a white supremacism, or do you think it's kind of like stoking both sides of a fight, like you were saying with like culture war issues like the transgender bathrooms, or we've got the Meghan Markle Harry thing at the minute, or there's like the in the UK there was a woman who was murdered by was on trial, going to trial for murder of a girl who he was a police officer, and there was a bunch of protests or candlelit vigils, as they described them, in London, and then the police came and sort of manhandled some girls who were at the vigil out of the way, and this is being like whipped up as like a battle for like men against women. So like from my perspective, it seems to be not like simply one like ideology, like the American or white supremacist ideology. It seems to be like this stirring up from every side where it means that we are divided and busy fighting our own stupid, like inconsequential battles instead of trying to like take down the establishment, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely happening. But when I'm talking about like, this is all sort of fairly new to me in terms of like a lot of reading I've been doing, but in general, how we teach people and how we teach history, and this is globally, comes from a very colonial, imperialist view of the world. We're so indoctrinated with it that it is just, I'm not talking about the current situation of racial issues or misogyny issues, or that's all just a distraction. I'm talking about the big picture of Western civilization and how we are basically indoctrinated, both in how we are taught history and in how the media presents what's going on in the world. For example, if you were to ask the average person in this country, what are your thoughts about Venezuela? Okay. Their answer will likely be, oh, he's a socialist dictator and we have to help those people. And then if I were to say something to them like, well, what are your thoughts about the sanctions on the people of Venezuela? Oh, well, we have to do that because we need to have them be able to create a better system for themselves, or whatever their mainstream media talking points would be. Right. So this is based on, and here's the clear division that we see in this country. So, for example, in my district, we have a lot of Venezuelan people. They're white Venezuelans. They're wealthy generally, and they're white Venezuelans. Now, when you go to Venezuela and you talk to actual people in Venezuela, like somebody like Max Blumenthal or Aaron Mate or any of the journalists that actually do that, what you find is a completely different story. These are not people that want to be saved by us. They want to be left alone by us. The majority of people in Venezuela elected this person, and yet we wouldn't know that. And that is not the talking points we get. We get this, and it is to me like a very supremacist, like, we're going to come in. We get to decide how you govern, how you live, and we're coming in. Now we sell it to our people. We manufacture consent by making it be, we're helping them. We're bringing them democracy. We're saving them from this ruthless dictator. And I do not think it's a coincidence that every time that has happened historically, it is a dark-skinned nation. We don't go up to some place, I don't know, pick some small Slavic nation and just sort of like, go in there. This is because we can create a perception of this like white savior. And we're all so used to it. This is a global thing. And this is something that happens everywhere, even in Africa. Like, this is a global thing that we are indoctrinated in a white supremacy, patriarchal, like we are supposed to help the poor brown people. And that is how we sell all of these conflicts, at least in this country. Like, again, I can't speak as to like how your media sells it, but here it is very patriarchal, very paternalistic, very, we have to help those poor people. And it's this constant portrayal of certain groups as lesser and other. And I do think that comes into play in terms of what we're willing to accept on foreign policy, what we're willing to forego as far as civil liberties to protect our safety because we're so scared of those people. I think that there is a very specific element because we started seeing it very heavily after 9/11, not just racially profiling African Americans. I mean, that's forever and a day old here. But now, and we just saw last night, apparently, we just had a massacre of 8 Asian women in Atlanta. So the hatred is deep, but it's, for the most part, perpetrated and accepted in this country by this perceived idea of, I believe, a white supremacy.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, follow me on Twitter, or sign up to our mailing list. Thanks a lot to our sponsor, ExpressVPN, the #1 most trusted VPN. Get lightning fast connectivity with servers in 160 locations across 94 countries. Keep your browsing privacy safe with ExpressVPN and get a 35% discount on 12 months of ExpressVPN when you follow the link in the description below. Don't forget, my book is now out and available to order on Amazon and on bookshop.org. That's Brexit, the Establishment Civil War. And most importantly, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.